Requiem aeternam dona eis Domini, et lux perpetua luceat eis. Te decetimus Deus in Sion, et tibi redetur votum in Jerusalem. Requiem aeternam dona eis Domini, et lux perpetua luceat eis.
Again, crucificati vintud me.
As we celebrate this Mass for the souls of all the faithful departed, we collocate ourselves in the larger family. As I mentioned yesterday, some are ready to go and are quite happy to go. I mentioned, just as an example, this good ex-Mother Superior, actually Mother Giuseppina, but what I didn't mention was the detail on this card, which I would like to quote now, for it conveys something of the spirit of the Christian soul in the joy of encounter. She calmly prepared this card herself, as I explained, leaving only that line free. Got the N for birth, nata, born, and then the date is 20th of July 1928, and then she's left this cross there with an empty space, and then by hand that is filled after her death. But all this, these bits here are her own, and they're worth listening to. Starts off with this prayer: O God, you are my God, you, or rather, ti ho cercato, I have sought you, e mi hai risposto, and you have answered me. I shall praise you forever. That double call, she has been sought by love, and there is that mutual seeking after. The suggestion is that the search is only quenched in the beyond, and all the orientation of the thirsty soul is yearning towards that fullness while here on earth. Hence our moments of adoration have something of that. And remember that when we're adoring the Lamb, other eyes are looking in this world and in the next in the same direction. So the communion of saints is a reality, especially in quiet moments of adoration, especially in quiet moments of solitary adoration, when we are really alone but in company. One does become aware that we belong to a great cloud. So, then there's Madre Giuseppina Schweitzer, daughter of Charity of the Colossian Order. And then we have this little quote of hers now. First of all, a familiar phrase: who will separate us from the love of Christ? But then there's this bit of her: I carry you all in my heart. Now remember what's going on. A saint who has loved Jesus and the community is carrying on with that same heart and memory. There's no huge divide. The same heart and memory in the soul carry on, and therefore those dear to her. So she's making this promise. And she carries on: my first blessing, and she's talking as ex-superior there, my first blessing, or rather the first blessing which I shall ask of God, will be for you. That's an echo, isn't it, of Thérèse of Lisieux. I'm going to spend my heaven doing good on earth. And then she goes on, As always, let us remember each other a vicenda, both ways around, that is, the one for the other, in prayer. And then this wonderful concluding phrase, arrivederci in cielo, until we see each other again in heaven. Arrivederci in cielo. You see the happiness and homeliness in the communion of saints. There's no fear, it's homeward bound, the natural stopping off place. So those who are not in that mode of wanting to go are in the other mode of being very much attached to the pilgrimage, the wrong side of the divide. In this month of November, it's good to cast our eyes onto the other side. I've mentioned before a good practice, not just in November, but in general, if one is hearing the clock strike the hour, to say that indulgence prayer, in whatever language it might be, Requiem aeternam dona eis Domine, et lux perpetua lucia Deis, requiescant in pace. Amen. And by the end of one's life, if one has done that regularly, as the hour strikes, how many souls will one have helped? And how many souls perhaps will be waiting for us and helping us? With regard to what actually happens once we go forth, this is something that in the whole of the month of November we want to bear in mind. People, as we know from my experiences in Ireland, presume too much at funerals and presume almost to sit in the judgment seat of God Almighty. It's a great illusion. The truth of the matter is that to see the face of God demands a purity which we cannot imagine. We know that even Saint Padre Pio had a tiny time in purgatory. So if that's the case for such a noble soul, what is it going to be for the rest of us? You see why to talk a language which banalizes getting to glory at a funeral is actually to play the game of the other guy. It has a bad message for the living and does an awful lot of harm to the dead because they're deprived of what they need. Now, I want to quote one little story here. Typical, but because it's typical, it's something that actually shows what's probably happening in the vast majority of cases of souls that we presume to beatify at death, I mean in our funerals. One of the most beautiful examples of a hand mark left by a holy soul is that of a defunct priest whose hand burned into a corporal. Now that's already significant. This precious item is preserved in the monastery of the Paulinian order, which is part of the National Polish Sanctuary of Czestochowa. The basilica at Jasna Góra attracts a constant stream of pilgrims. They come for the Black Madonna, with which you're familiar. But they're not aware of this other bit. They can't keep this bit visible publicly for obvious reasons, but it's there. And this is the story behind it. The date probably would have been not much after 1880. But the oldest testimony we can find is a report of around 1890 by a certain Father Reichel, parish priest of Hunsfeld near Wrocław. I was with two confreres on pilgrimage to Czestochowa, he says, when a friar of the monastery, who had the supervision of the sacristy, showed us the noteworthy things. He led us also into an adjoining vault and showed us there, among other things, out of special kindness, remarking that this was done only exceptionally, a square tin box with a lid. He lifted this, and we saw lying in it a corporal, on which a human hand that must have been red hot had been impressed. The upper layers of the linen were totally burned through. The lower were browned, increasingly more lightly. In the deeper parts between the individual joints, the folds of the linen were conserved. There where the muscles are more articulate, the combustion was quite visibly stronger, decreasing gradually to the sides. The following had occurred. Two clerics of the monastery had promised one another many years ago that the one who would die first would give the other one a sign from the beyond. Now, one of them was dead already for a long time and never had given a sign. This was what the other one was thinking about, when one day he had just finished Holy Mass and, as usual, was folding together the corporal before him in 9 folds. Then the evil doubt went through his head that perhaps there would be no survival after death at all. At that moment, a hand appeared, laid itself on the corporal, and immediately disappeared again. How much it was ablaze through and through, however, is shown clearly enough by the combustion of the 9 times folded up linen, exactly in the form of a hand. And here we are. What is coming through there is twofold. The soul that had gone beyond had retained its memory and in some way its effective bonding with the priest friend. He hadn't forgotten. He was faithful to his promise. So there is friendship there in a strange form, somehow in that soul on the other side. The other is the fact that even for a priest who was obviously taking his duties seriously, there was stuff to be burned out. Now, we know that priests and religious have a very severe purification because much has been entrusted to them. But the bottom line is this: the beatific vision is such that to come with anything on the conscience at all, not purified, would mean that the soul would burn, but in negative. It would be a pain. And therefore it consents willingly and desires that purification. Indeed, it avoids going too quickly into that crash. So it's a voluntary purification. But then they might be there for longer than we think, because the evidence is that they're actually detained sometimes for much longer than we imagine. So all that to say that it's serious business, this going into the beyond. And there are some things going around, even Ireland now, which purport to be mystical communications, which would seem to diminish that. And they're not classical in orientation. The vast bulk of testimonies that we have in this mystical sphere are coherent and always constant, that it's actually very serious stuff. And in the lower layers, it's actually, as it were, I say, a temporary hell. And some theologians have said, I think Thomas Aquinas himself, that it's the same flame in the two. It's just that one is consented to willingly and there's no despair. But that's for the lower regions where it would seem that no suffrages actually reach them. That's part of the problem. It might be there for a while, but some end up there who really shouldn't be there, who should be on the other side, but they're glad to be there, even if it might mean a long time. We might have, for instance, cases of people who, in ignorance, have committed suicide. We don't know exactly what happens, but God does all He possibly can. So even that level would actually be not bad when they see the risk that they might have lost all hope. Because the bottom line is hope. Dante, in his Divine Comedy, has written over the entrance to hell, "Abandon hope, all you who enter here." So purgatory is the last plank of salvation. If it weren't there, it would be pretty grim. And that's what Protestants forget. It's actually a mercy, and the greatest mercy of all when it comes to us poor sinners who probably have more on our copybook to catch up on than we think. Media vita in morte sumus. In the heart of life we are in death. When we have travelled on and moved afar upon the dawns that wake us, take us there where all things have their rest. When this our star that glimmers through our morn has bid us wear our solemn even's robe, and we no more have time to rhyme or riddle with our fate, but stand with understanding at the door, to which none came that hasted or was late. What will the droplet of a beam of time that we to ink did dye seem then? And then how will the sound of this once well-wound chime rebound across the closing age's glen? And will there be an hour to look again, and wish, half wish, we could 1 hour yet gain? When there is not a moment yet on earth that will be ours again, when gain is not in merriment or moments of high mirth known to have been, and when the measured lot of seconds tapped has tipped into our lap, and we have heard the word that utters all, for that no more is said, will one last tap
as soft as any other be our call, and will tomorrow hold our yesterday well poised beneath its gaze? Will there be none to whisper, "Come again, we'll come again," to paths long trod, to actions long, long done? For we have sinned a little upon earth, and damned aeons clasped a little mirth. Or will we be upon the Isle of Doom a little brighter in our homeward gaze? The hollow of this passageway to gloom wilt shed a glister on our unmapped days? And will the stretching of our utmost yawn bring sleep too heavy for our crinkled smile? Will this, the hap and scheming of our dawn, there seen again, bring pain or rest awhile? Will we have been when we can be no more? And these, the happy moments that we were to be, one day to be, when nevermore they can e'er chance to be, will they be there upon the cosmos standing to end all that never shall have been by one stroke's call?